So meltdowns for me come from a place of high stress.
And how can I help you and how can I understand it?
I know he can feel like everybody kind of staring at him and judging him, and I felt really bad for him for that because he's just having a really hard time at that moment.
Yeah, I don't really like to call them meltdowns, but I'm liking the new term of resets.
It can be upsetting for others, yes, and frustrating for others that just maybe misunderstand me or just doesn't understand what the hell is going on without that communication line of what is going on.
Feel detached from my body. My mind is now outside my body, observing the body move, but with no real connection to those movements.
You know, we're taught as parents that it's our job to fix anything that's wrong with our kid, and yet the first time your kid has a meltdown, it's so unexpected and so overwhelming.
Seeing my child suffer has had a profoundly difficult effect on me.
Meltdowns are sort of like a storm, for me anyway. Please keep in mind this is my experience with them, and the more people on the spectrum that you can ask about this, the better. The more varied answers that you're going to get. A wider range of responses is what you're going to get, and that's good. To go and ask people on the spectrum about their experiences.
So in my opinion, meltdowns play in the minds of typical people as being behavior associated with juvenile emotions, inexperience, or simply being overwhelmed. This is because most people lack the knowledge of what meltdowns really are, which I believe are a hybrid of an existential crisis, depersonalization, and aporia brought on by normopathy and extreme empathy.
So, first I would say that it's instigated by some combination of, for me at least, combination of loud noise and heightened emotions. So that seems to be the two factors that need to be involved. And generally when I was a kid, it was the result of bullying.
Changing my environment, changing my routine, or extended periods in really big social environments. So sometimes being at school and having to be very social all day, being at work and having to be on at work. Even sometimes doing these videos can be kind of stressful because you're trying to get your words right, you're trying to say the right thing. And so afterwards I will likely go and decompress.
Well, meltdown stems from high levels of stress due to any changes in the environment, be it if I'm moving house or if I'm having any changes on my day, be it if it's the routine that has been changed due to when I used to be in schools, that, I have to keep to an everyday schedule, and just anything around me based on maybe people I'm working with that can cause a meltdown, maybe of a change of face or what have you.
My emotional color fades to blurry shades of gray, and experiences no longer seem real. So like floating around in another person's dream. And then suddenly, it feels as if I'm vibrating with the emotional energy of every person on the planet, feeling all of their pain and joy at once. And this is an immense, bright energy, like when a massive star dies and then collapses into a black hole.
There's a point that I call the slipping point or the falling point, because it seems to be the best way to describe it, where I just kind of slip away from the controls. One moment I'm there, feel I'm in control. Next moment, I'm just gone.
Feelings I feel are so real, like the whole world is crashing down on me. I get either agitated, anxious, nervous, snappy, moody, and sometimes just the loud environment I'm in, I might even just blow out of proportion and have that full-blown meltdown.
Whenever I have a meltdown, I scream. And then I feel really bad for it afterwards. I'm breaking down internally some more.
Once I get into a full meltdown, once we're in the full incidents, it hurts. it feels like a lot of energy has built up, and it's built up under your skin, and it's buzzing and buzzing and buzzing. And you want to run, you want to scream, you want to cry, you want to throw things, you want to hit, you got to expel that energy. It's trying to expel that frustration, expel that anger, expel that sadness and upset into action, and so that it has a way to go.
First point that I want to make is that obviously I think that the parent community understands, the vast majority of us understand, that meltdowns are felt first and foremost and most intensely by the people who are having them. And, even in those weak moments when as parents we get sometimes lost in our own self-pity, and yes, I acknowledge that's a thing that we do sometimes. We know that as much as we're suffering while watching our kid have a meltdown, they're suffering way more.
Takes over him. I can see it in his eyes. And I think that's where my sympathy ends up prevailing, even though it's so frustrating, to know how to best deal with it. Deep down, I know it's not him. I just know it's not him. And that if he could, stop it from happening, he would want that too.
But lately what's been going on with him is he's having his meltdowns, and he's actively seeking out his little brother who's 4 and attacking him and biting him and scratching him. And it's very difficult in those situations because, again, I want to make sure that my son who's having the meltdown feels better and works through it. But I also have to make sure that my son who's 4 knows that, it shouldn't be happening, and it's unacceptable to be biting him. But it's very difficult because I have 2 kids in that situation that I have to console. One who's being attacked, that shouldn't be being attacked, and the other who's having a really difficult time. And that's one of our family's biggest challenges at this moment.
So this is tough stuff for me, and it's hard to even talk about. I think that some parents fear complaining because we make this issue all about us. And I buy that. I can see why someone would feel that way. For me, it's all about the pain and the isolation. And I'm trying to figure out whether or not that's important. I'm trying to figure out whether or not keeping my son from certain experiences in life is better for him because they're difficult versus pushing him to continue to grow and learn and experience all the things that life has to offer.
Meltdowns are a process that is an overall positive process. So it allows me to retain true individuality and integrate into society. As teens and adults with autism, we must experience psychological stress and anxiety in order to grow and become independent.
So, yeah, the gift in this video submission really is to be able to learn from people who not just go through it, but are able to communicate what it feels like. Because I think then, can you imagine the gift that provides for this community of families and caretakers and teachers and, policymakers to really be able to understand or have a better view on what that's like from the inside. Because we just don't know, because we just don't live it.
Advice for anyone who's with me or an autistic that has meltdowns: be patient as it can be hard to see the one you love and care about going through it. Just wave it out with the storm. It will eventually pass, believe you me.
Now I've come to a point that my son will show me the way, as he always has. And when he's ready to handle something, he will handle it. That's not always easy, because my desire for him to thrive is so profoundly strong in me. I'm hardwired to provide that for him. I'm also hardwired to protect him.
There's a cyclical nature here. I think that feeling of not being able to properly calm down and then being punished as if I had done something wrong just fed into the next one, because it was, I tended to always internalize my emotions and then boil up, and then some small little thing could trigger it.
I just wanted to say that resets always end in epiphanies for me that are not always easy for me to articulate to neurotypicals, but they're often enlightening.
I guess the big thing in all of this that I'm trying to say is that caregiver fatigue is real, and parenting somebody who experiences frequent meltdowns wears caregivers down. And I guess the big message in all of this is that meltdowns are perhaps the best, sorry, not best, they're the ultimate example of why it's so important for both individuals with autism and their families to get meaningful access to respite supports, to be able to get away for a weekend from your family after you've had a meltdown, to be able as a family to step away and catch your breath and to heal.
For parents and guardians, I normally ask that people be patient. This is not a fun time for me. I know it's not a nice time for you either. Sometimes the storm just needs to roll through. Sometimes people just need to work it out, and it will pass. It will always pass. People can't scream. I can't scream forever. Please don't yell at me when this is happening, and please don't overwhelm me with too many choices or a timeline for when I need to get an activity done by, as much as possible. Sometimes giving me too much to think about or too many choices or knowing that I have a timeline can stress me out a lot more.
The things that I can best suggest is helping to manage daily stress, helping to manage daily stimuli so that it doesn't back up in the coffers as something that has to spill out later. So that when these big processes come, we can focus on our inner strength and our growth rather than having to also shove and push out all of the daily stress that could have been handled more effectively another way.